Good evening, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're doing very well tonight. And Zendikar Rising is upon us, the first full day of spoilers, and you know we had to cover them. But you know what? Number one, I'm getting off a really long, really tiring day at work. I don't know that I have it in me to do the extreme levels of analysis on certain cards you might be used to. And number two, I think the set as a whole, what we're seeing here on day one, merits kind of a holistic view as well. Finally, the few cards that are in contention thus far for BGx, which as always we will be focusing on, I think they can be summed up in such a way as to analyze them without necessarily needing a whole video to do so, dedicated specifically to those cards. So all of those factors combined makes me want to just kind of take a look at all of the cards here in a more casual format with you. So as always, guys, you let me know what you think about the content, whether you'd like to see stuff like this in the future, if this set, especially on the first full day of spoilers, allows for it. But hey, let's get into it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you especially to all Patreon supporters who are among the very finest people on this earth. I love you guys. Couldn't do it without you. Let's talk about Zendikar Rising. Okay, so I'm just going to give you kind of my in-passing thoughts on most of the cards. We'll talk a little bit about art too. We'll pause and elaborate when elaboration is required. But as for the ones that we already knew going into today, the new Jace, the new Nahiri, these cards are both pretty cool. They're both kind of niche. I think they're both interesting, well-designed, and most importantly, they are not pushed to a degree that we have seen some new Planeswalkers get pushed. That is for certain. So I'm a big fan of both of those. And then today we had some doozies right away. This card, Valakut Awakening. Very intriguing, is it not? We have a transform. I can't open it up and transform. I guess we need to do this. There we go. Okay, so Valakut Awakening. Put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards plus one. So this red card is a callback to other red cards that are kind of like the discard your hand, draw a new hand style of effect that we do see different variations on. But interestingly, this does give you card advantage, and it is not as random as some of the other such effects. Plus, it's modal. It's modal. This can also be Valakut Stoneforge, just a mono-red tap land, so the design space is very interesting. I don't exactly know offhand how many decks will be excited about this card on the face of it, but I'm sure it's gotta go somewhere. Definitely a very intriguing card, and perhaps indicative of more such cards to come. Next up is Ruin Crab, which I've gotta admit is a card that's really tickling my fancy. Simply because, yes, I was that guy, I was that noob like every other noob who, when I was first new to Modern, I said, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build a mill deck. Everyone has their mill phase. But to be fair, I actually think that mill is an underrated archetype right now. Now, if you ask me, and I am no expert, but again, I do have a bit of background in it from several years ago at this point, mill has been missing two things for a while. Number one, it has missed a critical mass of high-impact one-drops that go along with the plan, and Ruin Crab is exactly what the doctor ordered. It is going to be 8 crab mill. This is what you should expect to see. Let's look up the little brother, Hedron Crab, which is a very strong card in mill to begin with, but Ruin Crab is actually better because it has one more point of toughness, and it does not get shut off by Leyline, which is actually a somewhat effective card against most blue-black mill decks, and Hedron Crab is definitely happy to have his big brother joining the fight. We've got 8 crab mill. It is worth noting, though, that Crab Vine will not be fueled by Ruin Crab, because Ruin Crab, you cannot target yourself with it. You don't target anybody. It is each opponent mills 3 cards. So we're not going to see Crab Vine or other self-mill graveyard synergistic decks get a boost off of the new Ruin Crab, but mill specifically will get boosted. So as I was saying, we have the missing one drop that mill was looking for, and in fact it's just another effect of what might be already the best one drop in their deck. And the other thing that I have thought Mill has been missing for a while is a way to main deck graveyard hate, right? In a way that is not going to set their own plan back too much, simply because a big risky run when you play Mill is turning on the opponent's graveyard-based synergies for them. But of course, Cling to Dust is now a card that most black-based interactive decks are leveraging to great effect in Modern, and personally, I don't see why Mill could not lean pretty heavily into Cling as well. So Ruin Crab, definitely a pretty powerful printing, especially at Uncommon. I would expect to see Mill decks entering the queues at a much higher rate, at least for a while, at least until people determine exactly how good that 5 through 8 crab effect is. So Marasa Rootgrazer is a pretty pushed common, seems kind of like a common that's indicative of the ethos of the Celestia color pairing here. I don't think it's going to make waves in Modern, but it's a pretty powerful card, pretty above rate. Lotus Cobra, definitely kind of a classic niche but powerful landfall creature. Good to see some new, I believe, brand new art for Lotus Cobra. But Bloodchief's Thirst, this is relevant to our interests potentially on BGx. So first of all, we've got to say, especially on the Rock, this is actually very, very interesting because on the Rock, one lament that we frequently give voice to is the fact that we don't have those extra copies of 1 mana spot removal like on Jund. Of course, we've got Lightning Bolt. Even on Abzan with Path to Exile, despite it being a bad early game card, it can still be relevant for double spelling in the mid to late game to have access to 1 mana removal. Rock can lay no such claim unless you are playing, admittedly, some cards that do have niche applications, like good old Deathmark. Where's my Cold Snap printing? There it is. Good old Deathmark, but this is a sideboard card and it's only for certain metas. Otherwise, maybe you're reaching for cards like Disfigure, at least people have done so in the past, or you're trying to play a Dismember, which has its upsides, but the life loss can be a bear. Bloodchief's Thirst, this can be Fatal Push number 5. I don't know if we're going to play copies beyond this. I kind of think that exactly 1 copy of this is really what I'm interested in, at least to test. But look, it is definitely not even close, actually, to a strictly worse Fatal Push. Overall, don't get it twisted, it is a worse card, but this can destroy Planeswalkers. Even without kicking it, it can destroy an opposing Renin 6 or Tibalt. You know, Tibalt's gonna be everywhere. One of these days, Tibalt's gotta be everywhere, right? And, Bloodchief's Thirst, hey, kicking Renin 6 back to the curb, definitely pretty cool. And the kicker cost is high, admittedly, but then that turns our early game tempo positive 1-for-1 removal spell into a catch-all late game. Clunky, but still very powerful 1-for-1 removal spell. Now, I still am kind of on the fence about this card. If it had one of 3 things going for it, I would say, yeah, I expect this to carve out like a one-of spot in the Rock. If it, number 1, was an instant instead of a sorcery. If it, number 2, these are all or, it's not and. If it was an instant, or if it could kill things up to CMC 3 or less, creatures or planeswalkers, or if the keeper was 1 generic mana cheaper. If any of those things were true, I would be more hyped about Bloodchief's Thirst. As it is, I am still kind of hyped. I do think it can rock. We will have to see, of course. It merits testing, and it might also be a meta consideration. You know, there are times when Fatal Push is not that well positioned, and if it's not, maybe we don't want to play this card, at least in the main deck. But if Fatal Push is well positioned like it is now, I could really see us rocking out with a copy, or maybe even 2, of this very, very interesting new removal spell. Moving along, we have an interesting card in the form of Omnath. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Given my track record, the answer is probably no, but it's interesting by virtue of the fact that it is a 4-colored rare, mythic rare, or just of like a 4-colored card in general. You don't see that all that often. It is kind of cool. It's kind of novel, but it's one of these value bomb landfall cards, and if I'm ever on the receiving end of this, I'm probably going to be tilted, so I'm ready to take it all back and declare it not cool, right? But anyway, moving on. We see the first card in the form of Shepherd of Heroes that references the party mechanic, your party consisting of basically the core D&D classes, and, you get synergies and you get benefits based on that. It's kind of cute. I don't know exactly how I feel thematically about the party, like, in such an on-the-nose way entering into Magic the Gathering. I don't hate it, but it's not something that's got me really excited thematically. It does have the feel of a kind of synergy or a kind of strategy that won't really make it to Modern anyway, so maybe for those of us who are Modern players, we won't really see much of it, but it is interesting design, we can say that. Acquisitions Expert, there's some stuff to like, but I don't expect it really to displace anything in humans or be quite powerful enough for Modern in general, but maybe I would need to revise that if I see the proper shell. Moving on, Tazri, more party stuff. Linvala, same deal. Spoils of Adventure, same deal. Just looking at the art and so forth and seeing the names, I'm okay with the theme here. Again, this stuff all smacks of things that won't really see Modern play, but they are definitely kind of cool. I am digging the theme so far of Zendikar, what's it called? Oh god, I already forgot the name. Zendikar Rising, that's it. Okay, anyway, we're getting into some more interesting stuff. We have these new dual lands, and I don't know if the community has come up with a name for the category of dual lands, but basically, they're kind of like a modal land. They're going to enter untapped, and you can have it enter as either side. In this case of Riverglide Pathway, the blue side is a blue source, and Lava Glide Pathway is a red source, and they enter untapped. Now, it's going to be difficult to make a blanket statement as to exactly which of these cards are going to see Modern play or are not going to see Modern play. Like, it's not like, yes, these lands are going to replace shock lands or fast lands or something like that, or basic lands. It's not really going to work that way because each deck is actually going to have very different demands on their own land base. I don't mean to state the obvious, but I think people are kind of overlooking that when they're trying to evaluate these cards. Some decks really need their lands to be flexible, not just, in terms of which side you'd want to play, like we see here, but in terms of over the course of a long game, making this color this time, that color the other time. So I don't think they're quite as much of a free roll as people have in some cases assumed. And they also, remember, are not fetchable. The thing that is really interesting about them is they don't have a basic land type. So that can be both good and bad. Of course, on the good side, this could help decks kind of tech against choke and boil effects, for example. So there's a lot going on there in each individual specific deck, not even archetype, but specific deck. We'll have to evaluate how much mileage they can get out of these cards, but they are very interesting design, and I think these full arts actually knock it out of the park. Overall, I think the Zendikar landscapes are cool, but they're generally not, I don't usually opt to include Zendikar-themed basic lands in any of my decks. It's just not my absolute favorite. But I've always acknowledged that it's cool, always acknowledged that it's well done. But these ones are insane. Bright Climb and Grim Climb Pathway, this land is so cool. All of these pathways are just really, really cool, if you ask me. I'm very impressed, not gonna lie. So, those are my thoughts on those, and we have a wide variety of them. I think the pairings are a little arbitrary overall. I don't know that they follow an exact pattern, but definitely interesting. Moving on to Confounding Conundrum. This card is a bit of a doozy. I fear that it could be a little bit busted, but admittedly I am not a control player, so maybe I'm off base. But if you look at how this would slot into blue-white control, and we've had Juggernaut in the Discord regaling us with all of the possibilities, the horrifying possibilities here, right away, it's a cantrip. What doesn't cantrip these days if it's blue or in a blue adjacent color, right? Everything they do draws a card. I hate it. And then, you look at the synergies that Confounded Conundrum has with cards like Field of Ruin or Ghost Quarter, Path to Exile. It's very important because even though it's not strictly outvaluing the opponent, it is out-tempoing the opponent while leveraging effects that can really cripple the opponent at usually the cost of tempo, but the fact that they get to kind of recoup the tempo that would otherwise be lost is good in and of itself, and specifically gaining that tempo can be really important for a blue-white control deck, because one of the ways you beat control with almost any other archetype is to get under them, and there are other synergies here too. It also is kind of a main deckable or even respectable sideboard dedicated slots if it does end up being more likely a fit in the sideboard. It is decent hate. It's decent hate. It's not hard hate, but it's really decent, respectable hate against the ramp decks as well. So even if your own effects are not getting the opponent, maybe you will stop them from naturally executing their game plan. So Confounding Conundrum, definitely a very interesting one. We've got some more cool pathway art here, and then we've got some full art basic lands, which you know we've got to talk about. And actually, the first one they're showing us here is very, very suitable to our purposes on Green-Black Rock. I have seen very few lands that are more overtly Golgari in my day. This is definitely a Grimflare MTG approved basic land for your Green-Black Rock deck. Definitely very much a fan of that. Again, it's going to take a lot to move me away from my beloved old bordered basics, but maybe we'll pick up some of those and give them a spin on the channel every now and then. But I think this might be my favorite cycle of Zendikar lands that I've ever seen. I'm very, very impressed. We're looking at lots of really cool ones here. This island stands out to me as pretty cool. I like the whirlpool effect here. Of course, we have scans. They're a little bit blurry, maybe compared to what we would hope to see. Why can't I go back? What's going on here? Okay, there we go. There we go. But I'm definitely very, very intrigued. And this is a Sweet Plains, too. Definitely a Sweet Plains. You know, we got to talk a little bit about the art on the channel. And again, the mountains are really, really sweet. And there's a cool variety of types. Like, obviously, this mountain here is really overtly lending itself to burn decks. But then over here, maybe this is more like a, you know, if Scred Red played non-snow-covered mountains, I could see them playing a mountain like that. So you understand the point. For the forests, unfortunately, I don't see an obvious companion to our Golgari swamp here. I guess it'd probably be this one if you had to pick one, but all of them are a little too sunny to be a perfect fit for me. But they're pretty cool, you know? Definitely not hating them, just that reduces my desire to want to play these lands in my Green-Black Rock deck, just for aesthetic purposes. Moving on past the basics, we've got some more party cards. Tajuru or Tahuru Paragon is definitely kind of a pushed party card in many ways, kind of something that could knit the deck together. Again, is this something that's going to enter Modern? I highly doubt it unless they print more pushed effects like this, and even so, whatever, you know, seems a little bit too cute to me, but we will have to see. Some other interesting cards here, nothing that's all that crazy. We are seeing some Cleric tribal support, and again, that's something I do not expect to get there in Modern, but definitely nice to see some love for the tribes. We have, let's see, we're getting close to the end here. Let's see what Legion Angel does. I don't even think I've looked at this card yet. 4-3 for 4, white flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a card you own named Legion Angel from outside the game and put it into your hand. Oh, hey, that's actually pretty cool. That's, again, something that's maybe a little bit too cute, but that's pretty cool. I am liking the design space so far a lot in this site. Liking the theme in this set, it's been a long day. Liking the theme, liking the design so far, with a couple of reservations maybe, and really liking the art as well. A Cleric of Lifespawn talking about support for clerics and also support for vampires just by their presence. We haven't necessarily seen crazy pushed vampire cards yet, but vampires and elves, two of my favorite tribes, both present in the set. I would love to see increased presence of both of those tribal decks in Modern. I think we need more tribes in Modern so we can kill them with Plague Engineer now, because they're also cool in their own right. All right. Farsight Adept is like a pretty pushed common just because it's a 3/3 for 3. You and target opponent each draw a card. Obviously, there's synergies with anti-draw effects like Narset. Not something you should really expect in Modern, but just goes to show you the power of some of the commons these days, right? Merfolk Windrobber is pretty cute. Not going to go into Merfolk Tribal, though, that I can pretty much tell you. I can see some people maybe wanting to try this just because it's a 1/1 and you can play it early and then cash it in late game for better card, but like late game you're trying to go wide as possible, and even your 1/1, I don't know. Are you really going to cash that in for... conditionally cash it in for a slightly high risk, high reward card off the top? I'm not sure, especially when it has evasion in the form of flying. Seems like it can get over the line. You know, Merfolk, on the other hand, a lot of their 1-drops are kind of either meta dependent or underwhelming. So maybe people will certainly at least be trying this card out. But is it better than Benthic Biomancer or Curse Catcher? I don't necessarily see it. Note that the on-damage hit is not a May. That player will mill a card, so this is a risky inclusion, if for no other reason than it could put Croxas and Uros and Dredge cards and so forth into the opposing graveyard, right? So, definitely more of like a rogue build around than anything that will slot into Merfolk. Now, there's another Merfolk rogue that I don't expect to see Modern play. Here's an elf rogue. We love to see any elves. 1/1 for 1 with Death Touch. You know, it's not the worst elf, and it is a pretty cool elf in terms of, again, the name, the theme, the art. I'm feeling it, guys. I'm really feeling it. Tejuru Blightblade. Not good enough to replace any Monodorks and Modern Elves or anything like that, but maybe we will see something that is Modern playable for my beloved Elf tribe. And then, here is what the people, I assume, have all been waiting for. Let's open up the full art version of Nissa of Shadowed Boughs. Now, a lot of people are saying it will Jund, it will rock. I don't see it. And to be fair, the consensus in my own Discord from the 200 IQ geniuses that occupy my Discord agree. They also say the card will not rock, it will not Jund. It is not where we want to be in BGx and Modern, but I'm seeing a surprising amount of people outside of the conversation in my Discord on other sources of discussion saying that, yeah, they think Nissa's going to be testable or Nissa's going to be good enough. Guys, I hope I'm wrong because she's really cool. Seeing a Golgari Nissa is really cool, but I don't see it at all. Frankly, we need our Planeswalkers on BGX to be able to answer the opposing board. You think of all of the Planeswalkers that see play, with a slight exception for Nissa Vital Force, who frankly doesn't see play anymore anyway, and you can see why. If you're looking at Liliana of the Veil and Renin 6, if we're in Jund, if you're looking at Vraska Golgari Queen, Liliana the Last Hope, all of these cards at least have the potential to answer the opponent's board. And even if they cannot directly answer them, they can work on attrition in other ways. Nissa of Shadowed Boughs cannot even get you any kind of advantage upon entering the battlefield when cast on curve. So number one, I don't think it's playable if it can't impact the opponent's board, therefore it can't protect itself. Number two, it's not even like a value trade-off on, you know, maybe you can play her, buy something back, and then she'll eat an attack, and that's kind of like a 2-for-1, but you can't even do that with her in our deck while casting her on curve. You know, the +1 is okay. It's cool that it's the kind of stock go-to Nissa ability of animating a land, but it feels more black because it has Menace. You know, I like that. I think that's pretty cool thematically. And of course, the -5 is thematic as well because it's the black-based kind of graveyard-oriented recursion, and it feels green because it's relevant. It's measured relative to the lands, and it comes back with counters, so it feels very green-black. The theme is real, but like this card is simply not better than anything we're doing at all, in my opinion. If there is a home for Nissa of Shadowed Boughs in Modern, it is probably in the new or newly popular green-black Titanfield deck that's playing like Dread Presence, and it's a dedicated green-black ramp deck. That is the type of thing that could maybe power her out ahead of schedule, could really abuse the landfall triggers, could really use the animated land as a different win condition, and could also, along the way, really benefit from that -5. But for us, for our purposes, I sadly have to say I really do not think she's going to rock. There's another pretty cool pathway, full art. We also have a promo version of Bloodchief's Thirst for those of us who like to prettify our builds. And finally, Pelaka Predation. This is just a discard effect that will not see play in Modern. So there you go, guys. That was my kind of off-the-cuff. Seeing some of these cards, like really reading them for the first time, most of them I did manage to really like look at and take in over the course of my workday. And I wanted to do kind of an informal coverage, specifically of Bloodchief's Thirst and Nissa of Shadowed Boughs, because those are the two that people will be asking me about, but also give you my impressions of the set in its entirety. And finally, guys, I wish to give you my thoughts on the other kind of supplementary inclusions that were spoiled today that will not be entering Modern by way of Standard, and also on their spoilers for the future, on their prognostications for what's coming down the road. So, of course, we have some seriously interesting expeditions, and I like these a lot. The border's cool. The cards are depicting scenery that is more detailed, and also there's more action going on than we're used to seeing in Fetchlands. Now, I'm definitely a huge fan of Fetchlands, especially the old Onslaught original ones, but these are definitely compelling, not only for the fact that they're expeditions, they're special, they're rare, they're shiny, they've got the new border and all that, but because they are different. I'm glad that they took such a different direction relative to the kind of the more stoic or passive feel, which again I kind of like, of the existing Fetchlands, and these are definitely sufficiently different to have me sit up and take notice. The Bloodstained Mire, that's probably going to be a beautiful foil, you have to imagine. I'm really into these. I'm pretty impressed overall, again, by the art direction in the set. Verdant Catacombs, this is really excellently done. It does not have as oppressive of a feel as the Verdant Catacombs we all know and love. So whether it is a better or worse fit for BGx, that is up to you, but it is definitely, again, sufficiently different to have been worth doing, in my opinion. We also have some pretty cool expeditions for non-Fetchlands. We have these Commander duels, we have Prismatic Vista, and we have a new Wasteland. Pretty cool stuff if you ask me. And then we gotta talk about what's coming soon, and Kaldheim. Is that how you pronounce it? I haven't watched the stream yet. Kaldheim? Probably Kaldheim. No one's happier than me about this. I'm an aspiring Viking. Magic, taking on a world inspired by Vikings, you've got me. I'm in. I'm 10 out of 10 hyped before a single card is even spoiled. You got me. Strixhaven following that up, the School of Mages, the most elite university in the multiverse is the tagline. That could go either way for me. I enjoy wizards and mages very much so, but more about the classic archetype. Gandalf, Saruman, these are archetypal wizards to me from Lord of the Rings. The Harry Potter stuff, not as much my cup of tea, if you will, but we'll see exactly how they handle it. A little bit of whimsy is warranted. Being over the top with it is not going to appeal to me as much, but I'm just one man. And then I don't even know what to think about this. I already gave you my commentary on the party mechanic. Going further into that, I have no idea how it's going to play out. I'm going to keep an open mind for it. I love D&D. I love the game. I love the universe. Definitely no shade intended at that realm whatsoever. However, will the mashup between D&D and Magic really go off? I don't know. We're going to have to see. But what I can tell you is I am just as excited for what's up next in the form of Innistrad. The first set with the return to Innistrad, we'll be focusing on werewolves, and the second will be focusing on vampires. Original Innistrad is by far one of my favorite sets, so between Kaldheim and Innistrad, even if the two in between them are total duds, my hype levels are through the roof. When I got back into, or when I first entered Modern, I should say, from the kitchen table, Kaldheim was the first set that came out, and I've got to tell you, Kaldheim, Ether Revolt, most other sets since it, frankly, do not appeal to me at all as much as older sets did or Innistrad does. I'm a big fan of like Cold Snap, Ice Age, Mirage, sets like that. I'm so happy that we're getting Kaldheim, and I'm so happy that we're going to get 2 Innistrad sets focusing on werewolves and vampires. Can't even tell you. I haven't been this hyped about forthcoming sets in a very, very long time. And then, as if I was not hyped enough, who loves old borders more than this guy? If they exist, I've never met them. And we've got Time Spiral Remastered, bringing cards printed with the old border. Oh my goodness, am I going to have to get back into paper purely because of this? Maybe. I certainly hope that they will be readily available on MTGO. And then we also have Modern Horizons 2, and of course we all have our skepticisms of that, but since I created my channel, Modern Horizons 1 was by far the most exciting event, the most exciting set to cover, the most exciting changes made to the format that I mainly play. Now, we all have a little bit of trepidation here. We just really have to hope that they've learned their lesson, but we are getting reprinted enemy fetch lands at rare, which is awesome, definitely cool, and we are hopefully going to see other things that are boons rather than death sentences to our favorite format, but I will definitely be falling victim to the hype for Modern Horizons 2, and guys, when all the stuff's coming out, I'll be covering it just like this. So, yeah, my friends, a huge day. One of the most momentous official day ones of spoilers for a new set that I have seen. Maybe the single biggest one since I started the channel, due not only to my favorable impression of all the Zendikar Rising stuff I'm seeing thus far, but also, of course, due to everything we mentioned at the end that's coming down the pipeline. Yeah, looking forward to all of it, and also looking forward to reading your thoughts in the comments below. Please do leave them, and I will continue covering the spoilers as they come out. Not probably doing something like this again, but more doing my traditional thing of picking out a card that people are into and saying, will it rock, will it jund? And yeah, I hope to see you for those videos. Thank you again for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful day.